Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Michelle Holiday. I'm a behavior strategist with over 20 years of experience with education and student behaviors. And in today's video, we are talking about something that every teacher deals with: what to do when your students don't like the consequences that they have earned through their misbehavior. More on this topic coming up next. I'm not sure when this shift happened, but somewhere along the way, we picked up this idea that students have to be happy or agree with the consequences that they receive. And that's simply not true. In fact, thinking this way can make managing behavior even harder. So in today's video, I am sharing 5 things that teachers can do when students are hating on the classroom consequences that they receive for their misbehavior. Let's get started. Tip number 1, ignore the comments. One thing you can do is ignore the negative comment, talk back, or response, especially if you know that your students aren't ready or are not in a place where they are willing to listen. It's so easy to get drawn into this back and forth battle with students, but in engaging in that moment can escalate the situation and actually diminish your authority as a teacher because you're putting yourself on the same level. If your students are not open to hearing from you, you don't have to defend yourself. Better yet, explain the consequence. Sometimes silence is your best tool. So in the face of a negative comment, stay calm and move forward. Tip number 2, allow students to express their feelings within reason. Allow your students to express your feelings within reason and with respect. Quick note, the reason and respect part is something that you're going to want to teach and review. Do not expect that in today's students to have that skill set. So now I know this might feel risky, but this can be a powerful teaching moment. If a student says, "It's not fair," or "I don't like this," acknowledge what they're saying. For example, you can say, "I hear you," or "I get that it seems unfair to you." Once they've had the chance to express themselves, confirm that you heard them, but also let them know you don't agree. Then calmly remind them of the behavior that led to the consequence in the first place. This is about teaching students emotional regulation and accountability in the class setting. Tip number 3, reinforce the reason behind the consequence. Pointing out or reinforcing the reason behind why the student earned the consequence may be needed or necessary for some students. But the goal here isn't to prove that you're right, but to educate the student on the connection between their behavior and the consequence. Explain the cause and effect. Even if they don't agree, they need to be aware and understand that their actions led to this outcome. And this is a teaching opportunity that helps them grow in responsibility. The best time to do this is not in the heat of the moment, but when the student has a cooler head. Tip number 4, give them space to cool down. Sometimes students need a moment to cool down before they can reflect or talk rationally. And this can mean sitting them back to their seat or maybe to a chill out area in your classroom for a set amount of time. This is not a punishment. It's about giving them an opportunity to gather their thoughts and to consider their situation calmly. The goal is to allow them to re-enter back into the class setting or into the conversation with a clearer mind and a willingness to listen. And remember, it's not a punishment. So use this as an opportunity. And if you teach it that way, you may get better cooperation for the student to use this strategy. Tip number 5, discuss alternate choices. Finally, discuss the alternate choices the student could have made that would have led to a different outcome. This helps students reflect on what they could do differently next time, rather than feel like they're stuck in this negative cycle or that you are picking on them. Teaching them to think through their decisions gives them tools for the future and helps them to understand that they have some control over the outcomes that they experience. And a great time to do this would be a class meeting. And you can use the class meeting to share alternatives for everybody without pointing out the students that struggle the most. Instead, focus on realistic scenarios that you can discuss and the students can talk about and share in these meetings. Now, before we wrap up, I want to give 3 key insights that I want you to take away from today's video. Number 1, don't let your students' response dictate the consequence. You, the teacher, have already planned it out. so stick with it. Number 2, be ready to articulate why your consequence is valuable in this situation. Be on the offense. Don't get stuck in the defense. And number 3, stop trying to prove yourself. Communicate clearly, but understand that you're not always going to get a full agreement from the students, and sometimes even the adults, and that's okay. So that's it for today's video. I hope you found these tips helpful and you feel more confident when students push back against classroom consequences. If you find this video helpful, make sure you want to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on your notifications so that you won't miss future videos. I'd love to hear your thoughts. How do you handle it when your students don't like their consequences? Feel free to leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.